Everyone, welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief Recap. Having a fun time in the market. Stuff is jumping all over the place. And believe it or not, even though a month ago everybody said the end of the world was coming, well, turns out it's not the end of the world. Oh, phew. Obviously, working our way through this sickness across the globe it has its challenges. Of course, try and stay safe, all that kind of talk. PMA for the win. Try and stay positive. I actually have heard a lot of people say that stress in itself can actually exacerbate this situation. So, for whatever it's worth, try and maybe meditate. Do some calming exercises, go for a walk, that kind of stuff. If you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling anxious, just take a bit of a breather. I do see that sort of the world sort of anxiety gauge has been ratcheted up a notch. I can remember, after, of course, my wife passed, a lot of professionals would just say, the one thing that you should really try and do right now is just try and be kind to yourself. Which is actually really hard if you think about it. And in this kind of environment, I think that's actually good advice for everybody. Now is not the time to really beat up on yourself. Now is not the time to get sucked into that vortex of sort of negative revenge trading. Try and be kind to yourself. And the irony of it all is markets go up, markets go down. If you don't take too much risk, then it's not really the end of the world if things sort of move around in the wrong direction. Obviously, if you're trading leverage, if you're trading margin, that kind of stuff, you don't have the wiggle room to just sort of carry positions. That is actually going to show your sign of professionalism if you can admit that you were wrong and just simply walk away. But at the same time, too, what I've also noticed quite a bit is we've had setups develop. We had a macro driver that affected the macroeconomic picture. A lot of little names that they fell apart. We had to get stopped out, and gee whiz, here comes a whole bunch of new W's. And it's a trader's life. I mean, you're going to have to get used to this. You have to take losses. You have to publicly come out and say, oh, I was wrong. You can subscribe to my newsletter if you'd like to, but odds are you probably won't now. You have to have that professionalism to step up and say that. And a lot of people in this world just can't. So try and, half of our reason why we want people to build trading plans and to really articulate why they're doing what they're doing in their sort of strategic vision is you will have air pockets, 6 months, 8 months, where just nothing's working. And your job, of course, remember what your number one job as a trader is to do. And then it's weird. It's sort of like somebody just flips a switch and, all right, it's time to get back to work. And here come the setups. I was exceedingly pleased that as we were doing the daily brief, people were coming on the lounge and posting, woohoo, look at this double, woohoo, look at that double. So, here's a couple names that I'm enjoying. If I do hit my double levels, of course, I will be ringing the register to a certain degree. I wanted to show you one little gold stock. Kevin, what was that gold stock that, actually here, I could probably find it here. I thought this was a great example. One of our recent site OGs. This guy's turned into just an absolute monster trader. Joe, he's trading this SBOW, and look at that nice rally here today. So you can, as I've always said, there's always a bull somewhere. And hopefully everybody sees, nice W's and indicators. Willie's stupidly oversold, and W's coming in on price, and gee whiz, you can see where he bought it, and woohoo! So, the irony of it all is the stuff that we teach at TRI, it does work. It just takes patience and discipline, and you're not going to be right 100% of the time. Just get used to it. So when you are wrong, do you act accordingly and just, make damn sure he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. A big message on the site today was sort of around all this kind of how do we set ourselves up for a position of strength going forward? So that's sort of why I wanted to talk a little bit with the public about that today. Just an FYI for the public, and I probably should maybe make a comment in this just so you're aware. I don't know whether you've ever seen anybody on the internet who does 6 videos a week every single week, year in, year out, without taking a break. And a lot of people on the site are kind of like, yeah, Brian, you deserve a bit of a vacation. We'll let you have a bit of a break here. So officially, Brian is going to take a week-long vacation here. I think we'll probably start it up this Friday. This daily brief recap stream will go on pause while I'm on vacation. So just be aware of that. And if anything, maybe it'll be a good thing, because then when I come back, people are going to be, oh man, I so missed that daily brief recap, and I missed the broiler chicken. So awesome that you're back. Away we go. So just FYI, we've been sort of kicking around on the site. Brian really could use a bit of a vacation, just a bit of a break, just to unwind a little bit, and it's coming. So just be aware of that, okay, everybody? All right, so with regard to your conversation I'd like to have with you guys, last night we had our TRI SOF meeting, and lots of interesting names popping up and down. But I won't get into that too much here today. By all means, feel free to join the site if you'd like to participate in that group. Some great looking stocks out there. And actually, I have been on the buy side for a few things. I think I told you yesterday I picked up a bit of this Village Farms. Really like the look of that W there. Big Rooster also had this Tupperware name. Tupperware is just sort of sitting at its weekly breakout level. I don't know whether I really want to buy that with that gap all the way down there. If she does come back down against those lows and hold those lows, I might be interested. So where do I want to take you guys? You guys, we usually just do that little 4-screen setup. Here we are. So conversation really hasn't changed a heck of a lot overnight, other than we have seen nice little bids coming in on our beloved crypto. So actually, we're starting to get some really interesting bullish projections now on Bitcoin, and we still, we're in this pre-halvening rally window. We haven't officially left it yet here, so maybe if we're really lucky over the next few days, we get some sort of insane face rip up here to validate those historical studies about halvening event pre-pumps. Well, let's see what happens. Good part. I mean, we'll get to corn in a bit, but let's start off with US dollar index. Same conversation as we basically had yesterday. You can see this little AB equals CD is projecting higher. You can see greenback here is, have we gone to new highs? Yep, we have gone to new highs this morning. I don't see any reason why we can't go after this high, but at the same time, too, unfortunately, this is a risk-off kind of message. So stock market itself, I'm getting a little concerned that we're getting kind of long in the tooth as we're approaching May, sell in May and walk away, all that kind of talk. And then, of course, that's not really related to this asset, but we do know there's a big pivot coming up the end of June here. So, message really hasn't changed on US dollar index. Same message as yesterday. Go watch yesterday's video. I talked at length about that. Risk on, risk off. What the hell do you do with this crazy crude oil? The interesting thing, like I worked with this gentleman. It was a privilege that I got to work with him. Joe Sixpacks off the street don't get to work with like 30, 40-year floor veterans. So I was very privileged for a few years. I got to work right side by side with a guy named John Hoagland, who is one of the principals at this Top Step trader prop firm that I used to work for. And they do a free morning show that I really like the community here at TRI to sort of get into the habit of watching that show. It sort of sets up a good routine. I personally, I think I told you yesterday, I got a bit polluted on Monday night, so I was feeling delicate yesterday. So not, and also too, I kind of want to go on a vacation here, damn it. But so I wasn't there this morning. But when we did the daily brief video here this morning, there were a few TRIers that were there this morning, and a couple interesting comments from Hogue. Number one, he had never seen negative prices for futures contracts before, and he also was talking with the group about how crude oil price itself has what they call dynamic limits. What the hell does that mean? I have seen that in the spot contract, limit moves can be limited because, in essence, these are motivated people that are probably either going to take delivery or deliver the asset, and they just have to get the deal done. So you can't lock the market if it's a spot market. The cool part about it now is we all have a historical reference for this 2020 nutso year. We will be talking about crude oil prices going $40 negative. My hunch is 50 years from now, they're still going to be talking about this event. This is extraordinary. If anything, it sure makes me feel good about saying I didn't want to be long oil when we broke down through these lows back there in January, February. And I was even pulling up some of my old charts where I said, this is my line in the sand. If I get busted out here, I'm walking away. And some of these names are hugely lower than where those stop levels were. So if anything, I'm feeling pretty damn good that I was so bold as to say I hate oil right in here, and that was clearly the right call. And every once in a while, the broken clock is right every once in a while. I think it's like twice a day or something. So risk on, risk off. Interesting to see the price action in the corn, because I sort of talked to you guys about this the other day. I don't know whether I did this in the public or not. But I do believe that Mr. Bitcoin, or Miss Bitcoin, maybe Satoshi, wouldn't that be funny if we found out down the road that Satoshi Nakamoto was actually a woman? That would be great. Total irony of life. But anyway, here nor there. But I have been talking to the public. I actually believe that Bitcoin's actually leading the market right now. And it was interesting. We took this price action and we just said, okay, well, if Bitcoin is leading the market, right, leading, maybe the stock market's going to sort of look like this over the next little while. And lo and behold, look at when we put that price projection over, look at what the S&Ps are doing right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if the stock market is sort of trapped in a bit of a trading range over the short term. We'll see how it goes. Who knows? But, of course, all Bitcoiners and crypto enthusiasts had to look at this W that happened overnight and go, fucking hey, man, awesome! So, it's still way too early to go, this is a bull, rock and roll, away we go. If anything, what I see here in the short term is I see M, I see W. So that means I see a trading range. Top of the range, bottom of the range. Cool part about it is the range is coiling, kind of like what we talked about with that US dollar index. Everything is coiling. We were sort of like, oh crap, how deep does this thing have to go? And these were V bottoms. Oh God. So very encouraging that we actually start getting some W action here. I did hear in social media and stuff a lot of talk, man. I don't know. I think that's probably a little premature. I think for the time being, we're sort of just still stuck in this trading range. But we'll talk more about the corn in a bit. What I just want to simply say is you can see now they gap the stock market back higher here today. But I think this is a big hurry up and consolidate kind of market right now. And frankly speaking, for the risk takers of the world, they have to sort of figure out what the hell is going on in the energy markets. Because I'm hearing now that the June contract is coming under pressure now. So, we might see this happen into June. Same thing. Who knows? Can't write better fiction than reality, that's for sure. So, risk on, catching a little bit of a bid, in our crypto, catching a bid. Has the oil market stabilized yet? Probably still a little too early to declare one way or the other there. Risk off, bonds coming off a little bit with stocks catching a bid. That should make sense. That little bot trade still working away, and probably lower time frame players. I wouldn't even be surprised if there was a short, maybe on like a 30-minute chart or something there. For the time being, I still think kind of like the stock market's range bound between this trading range. I think the bond market's probably range bound, bottom end of the range, top end of the range, just bumping along. If we lose these lows, that means those bot setups fail and they should probably just be closed. In the gold, actually, this is a really cool conversation here. We did talk extensively yesterday about how we are still playing at this head and shoulders breakout level. And there was still a play against this na-na-na-na-na level. I remember yesterday morning, when we drilled down to a lower time frame, this was absolute classic, what on the site we like to call it an SFU setup. That's because we had one student in the past who absolutely loves FU moves. And so we just, on the site, I like to make all you guys famous. So we called it the SFU setup. It stands for Sebastian FU. But the point here, and I thought this was really cool, was if we drill down to lower time frames, you can see classic SFU against those lows. Stop, run, ding, 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 and then turn it right back up. I might consider that this is starting to look very head and shoulders-y for a guy like me. So that means that probably something along the lines of, I don't know, there to there to there to there to there to there to there. Something like that. Definitely not scientific, just eyeballing this. Probably actually even better to go off of clotheslines. Mind you, that's not a clothesline there. That's the intraday high there. Something like that. It's tough to say. But I get the feeling, I think fractal, right? I get the feeling like we've turned here. So if that's the case, and sure enough, we did have to come down and play against this key level here, what should we be thinking about in the short term? And, ironically enough, none of this shit really changes over time. Does it make sense why the market stopped here? I mean, look at that. That's ridiculous. Did I even draw that correctly? Maybe I didn't draw that correctly. There we are. So 1741.90, and today's high is 1742.40. So he took a grand total of 30 cents of heat on his short. And I remember as a prop crude trader, man, I used to see this guy do this every fucking day. It's just remarkable. So it really shouldn't surprise us that there's a bit of traffic up there at Mountain. Then also too, if we do simple things like we could probably draw a couple different trend lines. I sometimes like to draw a trend line, especially if I get like a shooting star peak that actually has a really negative candle. I actually sometimes like to draw my trend line off of that peak. And gee whiz, hello. You can see where that stopped that bull right there. If we just go off of the pure price action alone, in essence, that's that trend line there. Point of the matter here is we're starting to come up into trend line resistance. And then if you simply think about it from sort of an institutional perspective, remember, institutions are not allowed to sell down markets. You're going to get fired if you do that on a prop trading desk, I can tell you that much. And ironically enough, they actually want to engineer a bull market, get the public all euphoric on the buy side, and they are actually selling into those rallies. And as you can clearly see here, this is nothing more than a huge M top. And we always say, what are you supposed to think if you ever see the market smiling at you, right? So all they did was they dumped it. They rallied it right back into the original fail level. Mountain Man, trend lines. Not a big surprise to see a little bit of sort of fatigue, if you will, in this rally here. Probably a little too early for a guy like me to actually go, yep, I want to short this thing. What I'd ideally like to see is if we look at our momentum indicators, we start seeing signs of divergence through here. And then, of course, I want to see, nice market top, some sort of M to work with. So, I suppose we can just finish off that thought. Let's see. Let's go. Do I have a chart open? Hey, there's one. Let's go GC1 exclamation mark. I'll tell you, I'm worried. This kind of market, this is dangerous considering what the crude oil did. So be careful here, everyone. Trade your setups. Tread lightly. You can see the big gaps down here. If this thing craps out, look out. I think one of the reasons why the market did rally here today was that Bank of America came out and called a $3,000 price target for gold. The problem with that kind of thinking is usually they have remember Goldman Sachs did this. They said buy Bitcoins at $1,100 a Bitcoin because our target is much higher. And it took 3 years for price to get back to $1,100. So remember, when these big brokerage houses and banks and stuff come out with these investment recommendations and upside targets, very rarely do they say, okay, well, it's going to hit it by next week. I think I heard from the analyst that that is their projection through the year 2020. And frankly speaking, into November, I wouldn't be surprised to see gold actually quite a bit higher. You all know what I'm expecting for the rest of this year. So be careful here, everybody. And like I said, probably a half decent little trade off of the bottom for a rally back up top. And now institutional players coming back in up off that top. I can understand them taking short shots here. Having said that, do we have any kind of setup here for an old dinosaur like Brian to actually take a trade here? No, there's nothing for me to do. And frankly speaking, this gold chart just looks like spaghetti. I don't mind the idea of the higher time frame players playing that really big formation, that head and shoulders kind of thinking, right? This massive formation. I don't even mind the lower time frame players coming in and trading, but this is a lower time frame. Trade your plan, setups, blah, 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 blah. But, for the investors, I think you have to be able to stomach price exploration all throughout this area here. This is totally realistic to me. And at the same time, too, we could very easily see gold, 3, 4, 5,000 before the end of the year. So that's sort of what I'm seeing there. Not really a clear signal. Bigger, higher time frame formations are just working away. There were cute little setups down in here. It's a trader's life. You have to understand they're not all going to work. Live by the sword, die by the sword. If your risk levels are broken, you better obey risk tolerance and get the hell out. Interesting, we're seeing risk catching a bit of a bid here today in the stock market. Crypto is actually doing rather well. When I look at my sort of risk on, risk off matrix, there's the gold rallying back up to the top. There's the bond soft. Yen's doing almost nothing here. Stocks sort of sitting in that range. Hey, there's Bitcoin. Is that a W? Gee whiz. Ironically enough, and it's kind of, I suppose, like the bonds yesterday. I suppose to a certain degree we had a little bit of a W there in gold. But I sure like what I'm seeing out of the Bitcoin for that sort of seasonal rally that I think has to happen into that pre-halvening event. I mean, obviously history never repeats itself exactly. They say it often rhymes. I still really like the idea of there being some sort of pre-halvening pump. Maybe this base is what's going to sort of set that. Could be. It is interesting when we look at the junior market here today. We talked a little bit about a fractal that fired 2 or 3 days ago. That sort of inertia seems to be petering out here a little bit. Remember, this is a study of the small caps versus the big caps. So the big caps are having a nice up day here. Small caps not participating as much. And as we sort of said before, really, we can't really say, hey, it's a bull market again. Hey, let's go out and make a pile of money in the stock market until we actually see this thing start to W out. So right now we're just in a trading range. And in a weird sort of way, I see that in a lot. right? Trading range on the bonds, trading range on the stocks, trading range on, am I a bull in the stock market or am I a bear? Just sitting in trading range. And lo and behold, in Bitcoin, same thing, just sitting in this range. Not really anything new to report, but I did say yesterday I picked up a little of this VFF. Yeah, everybody should be able to see the W here. Did do a little buying in other names here this morning. I actually went and picked up a bit of the forestry stock that I sold off because we had our TRI SOF meeting yesterday and somebody brought it back to my attention that it was starting to bottom out. So I went and grabbed a little bit of that. But maybe I'll talk to you about that another day. The actual corn itself, and really, you know, the corn and the shit corn. Shit corn? Do you have corn in your shit? Oh, that's just nasty. They gotta really change the name of this thing. And I'm not even technically swearing. If I say the name of this index on YouTube, does YouTube consider that a swear? When all I'm doing is just saying the name. I don't know. Anyway, looking at the corn, you know, I think we've sort of said this to you before. As long as I keep seeing higher highs and higher lows, remember we had that railroad tracks bottom there. As long as we keep seeing higher highs and higher lows, this thing should keep working its way higher. Coming up to an incredibly powerful apex, and let's see if I just redraw this off of the clotheslines. Yeah, it's pretty similar. 1, 2, 3. You can see we're coming up to one hell of an apex here. Usually these pre-halvening rallies, and that's sort of, I think I have that image around here somewhere. Actually, this is kind of a cool study. Seeing all the spreads Wing out here. If we can W out through contango, oh my goodness, this could actually turn really, really bullish. And also, too, what I really like to see is I want to see M's in tether, i.e. people are selling their tethers and buying Bitcoins. So this image right here actually is an extremely bullish image, and just in the short term. We'll see whether we have legs here, and really I think that's all predicated on whether we break out of this trading range here. But there is, yeah, this chart here. I like to use it as sort of my roadmap. Now remember, right, history doesn't repeat. It often rhymes. So you can clearly see we were supposed to be rallying here. Ran into a chunk of selling when, you know, this was supposed to take us to a new high. So it clearly shows, and I think this is purely a function of COVID and what's going on in the world, that when the market was supposed to be going up, it did go up, but it just didn't find as much buying pressure as what we would have normally seen. A little bit of consolidation. Now, our next leg up, this push here is supposed to be our topping push. So, I mean, let's see. We could potentially, this was actually a really cute little inside bar yesterday, which is in itself a little bit of a bullish sign. Kind of like that gold hourly bottom kind of thing. We're seeing lots of this kind of hourly bottoms on the corn. We were talking a little bit. I think I had told you guys about this bot setup yesterday that was potentially forming. So you can see pretty good looking structure signal off this 25% level. Looking for a move up to 7,600. I don't see any reason why that can't happen. We're about halfway there now. If anything, to see signs that this is going to start to exhaust itself, we do see a little bit of volume divergence coming in. The general trend is still positive, though. The bears are completely asleep. The bull is awake. So we'll see whether the bull falls asleep. No signs of divergence out of MACD or RSI. We have to acknowledge RSI is getting overbought. And you remember our little talks about M's and W's in RSI. If you start to see an M come in here, then that will tell you that the bull run is done for now. The bull goes on pause. In fact, actually in the daily brief today, I spent probably about 20 minutes going through this RSI model scenario. What color line should this be? Just so people understand my thinking here with how you measure the strength of the trend using something like an RSI study. But none of those tops are here yet, right? We're just made a new high. I mean, maybe we push to a new high and this doesn't. Creates divergence, M, yada, yada. Kind of like this right here. See how we pushed to new highs, but RSI did not. M'd out, bulls on pause. Get ready for down. Sometimes when the bull goes on pause, we actually just go sideways. So you can see here, M came in, bull on pause. Yes, RSI worked its way lower, but really nothing happened here in price. So sometimes you get those kind of scenarios with these. Point here is no M yet. Looks like we had move stop to scratch level hit. So if we do crap out here on bot trades, I think you probably just walk away at scratch. But I don't see any reason why we can't keep working our way higher here. The question I think probably will be if we push to new highs and that divergence does start coming in, then we have to go, okay, well, enough's enough. So nothing really to do there, and the message is basically the same. Pre-halvening pump sort of environment. Where do they exhaust this thing? And as I had sort of said earlier, this rally in Bitcoin actually portends well for the stock market, because I think the stock market will consolidate just like Bitcoin. And then if Bitcoin's turning back up here in earnest, that'll probably mean that the stock market will turn back up in earnest. All right, so that's sort of the thoughts on the corn here today. If I can find that chart. Yeah, here it is. Only other thing, I mean, I don't see a hell of a lot to get excited about in altcoin land right now. I mean, I have a fun little sort of list of names that I like to follow that I've just been doing nanny nibbles on this past year or so. Nothing really too in earnest. If I can find the damn charts around here somewhere. There it is. You can see almost sideways, 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 sideways. Everything's just moving sideways. Nice to see this NMR just keeps surging higher. That's good to see. Algorand. If you're interested in an altcoin to take a real good look at, that one sure looks like it's setting something up here. Did a little bit of nibbling on this ONT here recently, just because I didn't have any on the Trex books. I've got a whack of it on the Binance books, but didn't have any on Trex, so I was kind of feeling lonely, so I added a bit of that. I'd also, remember, I think I've told you guys before, one name that I really like in this space, but they seem to fly underneath the radar screen a lot, is this Syscoin and the Syscoin people. You know, one of the reasons why I actually have followed and stayed invested in this name as long as I have is I remember sitting listening to the dev interviews, and I really liked them. I thought they were good people. That's not necessarily an endorsement. Remember, I'm a chart guy. You might go and listen to their fundamental story and this is all a scam. It's up to you. But, you know, two names that I think look like they're trying to set up to do something. You can see the W's trying to form here as this Algorand and this Sys. And frankly speaking, I see a lot of sideways action that could very easily turn into W action if crypto starts rocking and rolling again here. But nothing to do today. We, just for fun, we're keeping an eye on this poop coin index. It is interesting to see. I don't know whether it's a trade I would take, because I'm really a stickler that I like to see bots be in the 33 to 66. Didn't quite come down to 33 here, but you can see we have broken trend lines. We are Wing out. If I do those bot levels, you can see how the market is setting up this level. My hunch is this thing trades up through this high. It's probably good for another leg. And, you know, same thing as Bitcoin. I think Ethereum pushed higher here this morning. Haven't broken out to new highs yet there on Ethereum, but probably if that happens, then that'll probably push that poop coin index up. So we got a whole bunch of inside bar failures on these majors there the other day, which really worried me immensely. But as you can see, inside bar bullish reversal on the corn, inside bar bullish reversal on Ethereum, inside bar bullish reversal on Litecoin. So they've all just sort of said, okay, we've run out of sellers. We want to do some business. Nobody wants to sell. Well, let's take the price back up. That's what I see happening right now. I think that's basically your market summary. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. As I said, I'm going to be taking a week off here, just sort of mellowing out and unwinding. My hunch is I'm going to take a week off and I'll come back and everything will be right up at the top of the range. Tons and tons of profits. And Brian will come back wishing he had never taken the break. Who knows? But anyway, hope you got some value out of this. PMA for the win. All the best and bye for now.